All right, everyone, buckle up, because today we're going deep. Deep into the always interesting, sometimes awkward, and definitely evolved over time world of intimacy before marriage.
Ooh, yeah, we're gonna cover some ground on this one.
We are. It's one of those topics that everyone has an opinion on.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, everyone's got their own experiences too.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so fascinating to unpack. We're going to look at how views have changed over time. Like, was it always this taboo thing?
We'll get into that for sure. Plus, we'll bring in the expert take on the pros, the cons, the stuff people don't always talk about openly.
Right, because it's not just about black and white, right or wrong.
Not at all. It's way more nuanced than that.
It is.
Yeah,
So think of this like a time-traveling adventure through different viewpoints,
love it.
all to help you figure out what feels right, like, for you.
That's the whole point.
Okay, so let's rewind the clock way back.
Yeah.
Did people always freak out about intimacy before marriage? Or was there a time when it was just, like, no big deal?
Well, it's varied a lot depending on the culture and the time period.
Of course, yeah.
But if we zoom in on, say, Western society, where Christianity had a huge influence, there was a long, long stretch where it was considered totally off limits.
Like, really off limits.
Seriously. Like, morally wrong, bad for society, the whole 9 yards.
Wow. I
Yeah.
knew it was a thing, but didn't realize it went that deep.
Oh, yeah, deep and for a long time. And get this, in some places, there were even laws against it.
No way. Like, you'd get arrested for it.
Yep. That's how serious they were about it. It was seen as something that could, unravel the whole social fabric.
That is wild.
Got-
Okay, so how did things start to loosen up? I mean, was it just the 60s, free love, all that?
Well, the 60s definitely had their impact, but it wasn't the only factor.
Right.
A lot of things were happening at the same time. You had secularism on the rise, meaning people were less tied to religious rules.
Okay, yeah.
Plus, contraception became more widely available, and women started fighting for more control over their bodies and choices.
That makes sense.
All of that combined, it started chipping away at those old norms, and then boom, the internet arrives, dating apps explode. The game changed completely.
Yeah, it's like a whole other universe compared to, like, courtship in the 1800s.
Right. Imagine explaining Tinder to someone back then.
Their heads would explode.
Yeah.
But speaking of modern dating and all its complications, let's talk about the real stuff. Like, what are the actual pros and cons of being intimate before marriage?
Hmm.
And I don't just mean the obvious.
Totally. Well, I think one practical advantage is that it helps you figure out compatibility.
Compatibility. Yeah, that makes sense.
Not just physically, but emotionally, even intellectually. Like, you're learning about each other's needs and wants in a way that you just can't without that level of closeness.
Right, you're seeing a whole other side of the person.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the whole intimacy factor itself.
Yeah, that feeling of connection, the bond it creates, that's huge in a relationship.
It is huge. But it's also where things can get tricky. You
Yeah.
can't pretend there aren't any downsides.
True. Like, what kind of downsides?
Well, whenever you open yourself up emotionally, there's always a chance of getting hurt, especially if you and your partner have different ideas about what the relationship means.
That's a good point. Expectations can really mess things up.
They really can. And let's not forget, even today, there can still be societal judgment around this whole topic,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
which can add pressure or make you feel like you have to hide things.
Exactly. And then what about the whole idea of, like, past experiences affecting future relationships? Is there any truth to that?
There definitely can be, but it doesn't have to be negative.
Okay, so it's not like automatic baggage.
No, not at all. It all depends on how you learn and grow from those experiences. Sometimes, having been intimate with someone before marriage can actually make your future commitments stronger
Interesting. How so?
because you have a clearer idea of what you truly want in a partner.
That makes sense. It's like
Mhm.
you've learned what works and what doesn't for you.
Exactly. You've had a chance to figure out your own needs and preferences.
Okay, so it sounds like there's no one-size-fits-all answer here.
Nope, not even close. It's all about finding what feels right for you.
All right, so no easy answers. Got it. So how does someone even start to decide what's right for them? Where do they even begin?
Communication is key. You have to know your own values, be honest with yourself about what you're comfortable with.
Honesty, that's a big one.
Huge. And then have those open and honest conversations with your partner about expectations. What does this relationship mean to both of you? What are your goals?
It's like laying the groundwork for a solid foundation.
Exactly. That foundation is what helps you make choices together that feel good for both of you.
That's so important because, sometimes it can feel like everyone else has it figured out, You're the only one struggling with this stuff.
I hear you. It's easy to get caught up in comparisons.
It is. So what advice would you give to someone listening right now who's feeling totally overwhelmed, like, whoa, I got to figure this out, but where do I even start?
The first step I'd say is to set your boundaries. What are you absolutely okay with? And what are your hard no's no matter what?
Boundaries.
Yep. Once you know your own boundaries, then you can communicate them to your partner.
That makes sense.
It might feel awkward or scary at first, but it's crucial for any healthy relationship.
Because otherwise you're just guessing and hoping for the best.
Right. And that's not a recipe for success. Be direct, be honest. It'll save you so much heartache down the road.
Totally agree. And hey, listeners, don't be afraid to stand your ground on this. Peer pressure can be intense.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But at the end of the day, this is your life, your choice.
It's not about following the crowd. It's about what feels authentic to you.
Exactly. Owning your choices, feeling proud of them. That's what matters.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right, we've covered so much ground today. We've time traveled through history, talked about the pros and cons, the importance of communication. It's a lot.
It is a lot, but I think the key takeaway here is that there is no one right answer.
Right, it's about finding your own path.
Exactly. As you continue to figure this out, I want you to imagine your future self looking back on the choices you made. Which path would make you the most proud? Not in terms of judgment, but in terms of like self-respect and growth.
Ooh, that's a good one. Future you, what's up?
Right. Let that be your guide. It's not about pleasing anyone else. It's about becoming the best version of yourself.
Love that. And hey, listeners, this doesn't have to be the end of the conversation. Talk to your partner, keep exploring, and figure out what works for you two. Until next time.
See it?